As the 8th time of the transmigration, I'm deeply traumatized by having fight with the fake heiress. Unfortunately, not only is there an 18-year-old fake heiress in my family of this world, but she also has 8 older siblings who dote on her endlessly. Seriously, the stereotypical real versus fake heiress plot is driving me crazy. I retreat into the depths of my mom's womb immediately, my tiny hands clamping down on the umbilical cord. My refusal to leave my mom's body is absolute. Those idiotic brothers of mine keep spoiling that 18-year-old extremely childish fake heiress who insists on sitting in a baby trolley all the time. If I were to leave this place, I'd definitely get assassinated by them. My mom, who can hear my internal thoughts, is forced to suffer due to the complications in her labor for 72 hours straight. Finally, she yields to me by signing the Zero Tolerance Treaty on Unequal Treatment. She also assigns 108 bodyguards to me overnight. Satisfied, I finally release my hold on the umbilical cord and make my flashy entrance to this world. Mom taps me on my forehead. Natalie is extremely pure and innocent. She would never come up with ways to hurt you. On the first day I go home, Natalie Fairchild, the fake heiress, pushes my crib toward the staircase on purpose. I want to see if Nev can fly. A bodyguard instantly reaches out to catch my crib from coursing through the air. Scared out of her wits, Natalie slumps to the floor immediately. There, she starts crying like a baby. My second brother, Elliot Fairchild, pulls her into his arms lovingly. He says reassuringly, "Don't be scared, Nat. The bodyguard must have frightened you because of his actions, right? Now, you can stop crying now. Nev is fine, isn't she?" The next thing he knows, he gets tossed into the heavy downpour by another bodyguard. Have you all lost your minds? Hurry up and bring Elliot back inside. Ethan Fairchild, my eldest brother, rushed downstairs and glared at my bodyguards. Mom, who was sitting on the couch and drinking royal jelly, froze. She stared at Natalie in utter disbelief. Recalling the words she had just spoken, a wave of fear instantly surged in her eyes. "Shut up. Can't you see the bodyguards are just enforcing the agreement?" Ethan strode over. "That agreement's a load of crap. Nat's the one we've doted on since we were kids, Mom. Who do these maids think they are, laying their hands on her?" Natalie, the fake heiress, immediately wrapped her arms around Ethan's leg. "Eth, I thought Nev was a little angel, and little angels can fly. Eth, don't be mad at Mom. If you really want to blame someone, blame me for being a silly baby." I felt so disgusted that I almost threw up the milk I had just drunk. She's 18 years old, and she dares to call herself a baby in front of me. An actual baby? Is she missing a brainstem, or did a zombie chew it off? Mom's expression darkened as well. Previously, she found Natalie adorable, but now that she had my inner thoughts providing a live commentary, Natalie's voice was likely grating on her ears. Ethan helped Natalie up, his heart aching for her. "Nat, you're the most innocent baby. How could I ever blame you?" He turned to look at my bodyguards icily. "Get down on your knees in the courtyard and apologize to Nat right now. Otherwise, I'll make sure none of you can survive in Oak Ridge." Damien Lockwood, the captain of the bodyguards, took a step forward. "Mr. Ethan, according to Article 4 of the agreement, anyone who shows favoritism or shields Ms. Natalie when she attempts to harm Ms. Neve will be deemed an accomplice. The punishment stands as follows: 1 physical wake-up call and the forfeiture of 1 property under their name." Ethan was so furious that he jeered. He reached out to snatch the agreement from Damien's hand. "This is absurd! I'll tear this scrap of paper up today. Let's see which of you dares to touch me." In the blink of an eye, shreds of paper were scattered all over the floor. After quietly watching Ethan throw his tantrum, Damien snapped his fingers, and over a dozen bodyguards whipped out identical copies of the agreement in perfect unison. "Mr. Ethan, the 91 men outside all have copies of the agreement as well. Do you plan to tear them up one by one, or by the pound?" I kicked my short little legs in the cradle with satisfaction. I'm dying. After conquering 8 worlds, I've learned that I have to be 2 steps ahead of my enemies. Mom cleared her throat to hide the amusement in her eyes. "Ethan, it's written in black and white, and your father personally stamped it with the company seal. Are you trying to breach the agreement?" Ethan was just about to argue when his gaze swept over me, who was lying in the cradle and blowing milk bubbles. For some reason, all his anger melted away. Noticing that things were not in her favor, Natalie immediately clutched her chest. "My chest hurts so much, Eth. Am I going to die?" Ethan panicked in a heartbeat. He held her and yelled for the private doctor. With a straight face, Damien waved his hand, and 2 bodyguards immediately stepped forward and seized Ethan. Before he could utter a single word of protest, Ethan was tossed out into the torrential rain. Damien swiped on his digital tablet. "Mr. Ethan, you've violated Article 7 of the agreement by threatening an enforcement personnel. Hence, your villa in Rosemont Manor in the south of the city now belongs to Ms. Nevia." I yawned and closed my eyes in satisfaction, preparing to sleep. Meanwhile, Natalie curled up on the couch, her eyes filled with venomous resentment. The next day, I lay in my cradle, staring blankly at the ceiling. The rain was so heavy last night. Surely all that water in Ethan's and Elliot's brains must have been flushed out by now. Mom was teasing me with a rattle. When she heard my thoughts, her hand froze, and the corner of her mouth twitched to spite herself. Just then, my 3rd oldest brother, Edward Fairchild, kicked the door open and barged in. "Mom, have you lost your marbles? Ethan and Elliot were out in the rain all night, and now they're lying in the hospital with a 104-degree fever." Pointing at my cradle, he demanded, "You're abandoning your sons for this little gremlin who can't even speak?" Without sparing him a single glance, I continued blowing milk bubbles. Who is this little gremlin calling a little gremlin? I can't believe a scrawny weakling who can't even kick down a security door dares to come here and bark at me. Mom set the rattle down, her gaze turning cold. "Watch your tongue, Edward. Nev's your biological sister." Natalie seized the opportunity opportunity to lean over the cradle and raise a baby bottle that was still steaming hot, aiming it right at my face. Nev, you must be hungry too. Let me share my milk with you. As the scalding milk was about to drench my face, I screamed at the top of my lungs. Damien materialized out of nowhere like a ghost, seizing Natalie's wrist and twisting it in one swift motion. The very next second, the hot milk landed squarely on the back of her own hand. Natalie yelped and fell backward onto the floor before blowing on the raw red skin of her hand. Malice flashed across her eyes, but she instantly switched gears, bursting into tears. Ed, save me. Mr. Lockwood is going to beat me to death. Edward immediately rushed over and held Natalie. Look at what Nat has been reduced to, Mom. She was kind enough to give this little gremlin some milk. And you guys respond with such cruel violence? She's only 18. She's also a baby who needs to be coddled. I couldn't help but roll my eyes in the cradle. An 18-year-old baby? Please. She literally has to buy a full-priced adult ticket just to see the monkeys at the zoo. Mom took a deep breath. She was visibly disgusted. If she really thinks she's a baby, she can go sleep in a crib. Quit putting on an act in front of me. Edward's eyes widened in utter disbelief. How can you be so biased, Mom? I'm going to let my 50 million fans see exactly how this little gremlin and her biased biological mother bully Nat. Right after saying that, he whipped out his phone and started a live stream. Natalie instantly shrank back, huge teardrops rolling down her cheeks. Ed, please don't. Your fangirls will come after Nev because of this. Despite saying that, her body leaned right into the camera frame. Don't be mean to Mom. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have grown up. I'll be good from now on, Mom. Please don't kick me out. The live chat immediately exploded. Goodness, that baby is pure evil. She's already this domineering right after being born. Don't be afraid, Nat. We'll always support you. Let's boycott that malicious brat. Edward cocked his brow triumphantly. See that, Mom? The eyes of the masses are sharp. If you don't make this little gremlin apologize to Nat right now, I'll make sure her reputation is completely ruined online. I yawned in boredom. Did this idiot forget that the largest shareholder of his talent agency is Dad? Mom sneered. Without lifting her head, she called out, Damien. Damien pulled out the agreement in an instant. Mr. Edward, pursuant to Articles 12 and 35 of the agreement, you have condoned Ms. Natalie's attempt to scald Ms. Neve, and you have utilized your public influence to slander Ms. Neve. You'll be blacklisted for 1 year, all your endorsements will be terminated, and your income for this year will be confiscated as compensation for Ms. Neve's emotional distress. Edward froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. You're going to blacklist me? How dare a lowly bodyguard like you run your mouth here? Ignoring his mockery, Damien simply said into his walkie-talkie, do it. In less than 3 seconds, Edward's live stream was forcibly shut down. Immediately after, his manager called. Edward, the company just pulled you from all scheduled appearances for the entire year. All your endorsements have been terminated, and you have to pay astronomical breach of contract penalties. Edward stormed out the door, leaving Natalie frozen in place. Slowly, she balled her blistered red hand into a fist, and a creeping coldness filled her eyes. On the day I turned a month old, the Fairchilds booked the most luxurious hotel in the entire city to host a banquet. I lay peacefully in my cradle. These demons are definitely going to stir up trouble again today. Mom stood beside my cradle, gently patting my little tummy, her eyes filled with reassurance. While the guests were showering me with flattery, my 4th oldest brother, Emerson Fairchild, my 5th oldest brother, Evan Fairchild, and my 6th oldest brother, Ezra Fairchild, walked in and gathered around Natalie. Everyone's attention was instantly drawn to them. Natalie wore an exaggerated pink puffy dress and a large rhinestone-encrusted bow on her head, hugging a teddy bear. Ev, is it really okay for me to dress like this? Won't I steal Nev's spotlight? I almost threw up the milk from the night before. Whose baby dresses like a pink poisonous mushroom that came to life? Evan was a race car driver with the most flamboyant personality. He threw his arm around Natalie's shoulders. You look great in everything you wear, Nat. You'll always be the most spoiled little princess in our family. Ezra was a painter, and he gently stroked Natalie's head. Even though Nev's the guest of the hour, you are forever #1 in your brother's hearts. The guests around them looked at one another in awkward silence. Natalie skipped over to my cradle. Happy 1-month-old, Nev. I prepared a gift for you. Then she pulled out a rattle. I bought this with my allowance. You won't dislike it, right, Nev? Batting her eyelashes, she abruptly swung the rattle toward my face.
The rattle came whistling toward my forehead with the accuracy of a professional baseball pitcher. I stared at it with all the serenity a 1-month-old could muster. There it is. Attempt number 3. She's really committed to the accidentally murder an infant lifestyle. Before the rattle could reach me. Whoosh. Damien caught it between 2 fingers. He didn't even blink. The entire banquet hall fell silent. Damien inspected the rattle. Mr. Owen. One of the bodyguards immediately stepped forward with a pair of white gloves. Damien dusted the toy for fingerprints. I blinked. Are they running a CSI investigation at my 1-month banquet? Owen raised a tiny ultraviolet flashlight. Captain. There are traces of industrial strength adhesive. Everyone frowned. Damien twisted the rabbit head off the rattle. Hundreds of steel ball bearings poured onto the carpet. The guests gasped. One elderly lady nearly fainted. If this had struck Miss Neve's face, Damien announced calmly, the impact could have fractured her skull. Natalie's face instantly turned white. I didn't know. I bought it online. I thought it was just a normal rattle. My 4th brother Emerson immediately stepped forward. Captain Lockwood, that's ridiculous. It was obviously a manufacturing defect. Damien nodded. Agreed. Everyone looked relieved. Then Damien continued. Which is why we've already invited the manufacturer. The ballroom doors opened. A middle-aged factory owner was escorted inside by 6 bodyguards. He bowed 90 degrees. Our factory has never produced this item. He held up an invoice. This rattle was modified yesterday. We have surveillance footage. The giant LED screen behind the stage suddenly switched on. Security footage began playing. There was Natalie. Wearing sunglasses indoors. Sneaking into a workshop. Handing over a stack of cash. Then pointing at the rattle while making stabbing motions toward a baby doll. The workshop owner scratched his head in the video. You want it, heavier? Natalie nodded enthusiastically. Heavy enough to knock out a watermelon. The workshop owner looked horrified. I thought she was filming a comedy skit. The ballroom erupted. I nearly inhaled my own pacifier. Ha 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 ha. She literally demonstrated assault using a baby doll. Who storyboards a crime? Natalie looked like her soul had left her body. That's AI. It's deepfake. This technology is so advanced now. Damien raised an eyebrow. The footage was recorded yesterday. My mistake. The prototype AI. Even the guests couldn't hold it anymore. Someone snorted. Another started laughing. Within seconds the entire ballroom was shaking with suppressed giggles. My fifth brother Evan slammed the table. Enough. You're all bullying Nat. She's mentally only 5 years old. I almost sat upright from shock. 5? Her fake age keeps getting lower every time she loses. At this rate she'll qualify as a fetus next week. Mom pressed her lips together so hard her shoulders started shaking. She wasn't angry. She was trying not to laugh. Dad finally stood. The room instantly quieted. As chairman of the Fairchild Group, his expression was terrifyingly calm. He looked toward Evan. You just said Natalie is mentally 5? Evan nodded confidently. Exactly. Dad picked up his phone. Excellent. He dialed someone. Hello. This is Richard Fairchild. I'd like to donate all of Evan's sports cars. Evan's smile froze. Dad? If he believes adulthood should be determined by mental age. Dad looked over his glasses. Then he clearly isn't mentally mature enough to own 12 supercars. Evan screamed. Dad. My Bugatti. My Ferrari. My custom Lamborghini. Dad ignored him. Sell them all. Donate the proceeds to children's hospitals. I stared at him with sparkling eyes. Dad. You magnificent tyrant. Even Damien looked impressed. A bodyguard quietly whispered. The chairman is evolving. Another nodded solemnly. Captain Lockwood's influence. Meanwhile, my sixth brother Ezra tried changing the subject. Fine. Even if Nat made a mistake, she's family. You can't keep punishing everyone. Family should forgive each other. I stared at him. Oh? Family? Wonderful. Let's test that theory. At that exact moment, I performed the greatest biological weapon known to infants. PFFFFFT. Silence. Then, a smell. A truly apocalyptic smell. The entire ballroom froze. Several guests instinctively covered their noses. One bodyguard actually took a step backward. Ezra looked horrified. What is that? Mom smiled sweetly. Oh. Nev needs a diaper change. She looked directly at Ezra. You just said family should help each other. Go ahead. Ezra's face turned green. And me? Of course. You love your little sister, don't you? The other three brother immediately began retreating. Dad folded his arms. No one leaves. 5 bodyguards silently blocked every exit. Damien produced a fresh diaper, baby wipes, powder, rubber gloves. Why does he have those already? Does this man prepare for every conceivable battlefield? Damien handed everything to Ezra. Mr. Ezra. Article 56. Family members are encouraged to build healthy sibling relationships. Today's mandatory bonding activity has been selected. Ezra looked like he wanted to cry. I've never changed a diaper. Damien smiled politely. Everyone has a first time. 5 minutes later. The famous genius painter, whose artwork sold for millions, was standing over a changing table wearing elbow-length rubber gloves, 3 face masks, swimming goggles, and what appeared to be a rain poncho. He looked like he was preparing to dismantle a nuclear reactor. I giggled. He screamed. The banquet guests applauded. The applause lasted a full minute. He was still standing there, holding the clean diaper upside down like it was an unsolved physics equation. Captain. Ezra's voice trembled. Which side is the front? Damien didn't even look up from his tablet. The side with the cartoon duck. Ezra turned it around. There are ducks on both sides. Damien finally looked over. There are, indeed, ducks on both sides. For the first time since I'd been born, Captain Lockwood was defeated by diaper design. The surrounding bodyguards immediately formed a tactical discussion circle. Captain. I believe the yellow duck indicates the front. No, the duck wearing a sailor hat. The manufacturer's artistic intent is unclear. One bodyguard actually pulled out the instruction manual. The guests burst into laughter again. I kicked my little legs happily. Wonderful. 91 elite bodyguards. Neutralized by cartoon poultry. Meanwhile, Natalie watched Ezra being publicly humiliated, her face twisting with jealousy. Why? Why was everything revolving around that stupid baby? She gritted her teeth. If I became the center of attention again, everyone would love me instead. Her eye suddenly landed on the towering 5-tier birthday cake. A slow smile spread across her face. Oh. She clapped excitedly. I prepared another surprise for Nev. Every adult within a 10-meter radius visibly flinched. Even the violinist stopped playing. Dad sighed. Damien. Protocol pink. I blinked. Protocol pink? There are color-coded emergency plans now? Damien calmly spoke into his earpiece. Protocol pink. Instantly. 20 bodyguards surrounded the cake. 10 surrounded Natalie. 5 surrounded me. 3 surrounded the cake knife. 1 bodyguard gently escorted the violinists to safety. Another quietly removed every decorative balloon within Natalie's reach. The guests stared. One whispered. Is this a birthday party or a military operation? Another replied. I honestly can't tell anymore. Natalie froze. I only wanted to cut the cake. Damien nodded. Exactly. He pointed toward the towering confection. Last week Miss Natalie attempted to introduce a weighted projectile. The week before, she attempted thermal assault. Our threat assessment has concluded that desserts are now considered high risk. I almost choked on my pacifier. They have a threat assessment? Do they hold meetings? PowerPoint presentations? Slide 7, probability of cake-related homicide. Dad actually nodded approvingly. Excellent work. Damien continued. Proceed with inspection. 2 bodyguards wheeled over. An airport X-ray scanner. The ballroom went dead silent. Someone whispered. Where did they even get that? Another guest answered. I don't want to know. The cake slowly rolled through the scanner. Everyone watched the monitor. A bodyguard frowned. Captain. There appears to be. He zoomed in. Metal. The room erupted. The pastry chef nearly collapsed. What? Impossible. The cake was sliced open. Hidden inside was a stainless steel tiara. The chef blinked. Oh. That's the decoration the client specifically requested. He pointed directly at Natalie. Miss Natalie said it would be dramatic if it appeared when the cake was cut. Natalie forced a smile. Surprise. Damien adjusted his glasses. Threat level reduced. From assassination to questionable taste. Even Dad pinched the bridge of his nose. 18 years old. And she's still hiding toys inside cakes. Natalie stamped her foot. It's called being whimsical. I snorted internally. Whimsical? No. You're a health and safety violation wearing a mushroom dress. Just then. My 7th brother, Felix Fairchild, finally arrived. Unlike the others, Felix wore a crisp doctor's coat over his suit. He looked around at the bodyguards, the dismantled cake, the X-ray machine, Ezra still wearing goggles beside the changing table, and Natalie pouting in her pink dress. He was silent for a long moment. Then he quietly asked. Did I accidentally walk into a psychiatric hospital? The ballroom exploded with laughter. Even Damien coughed into his fist to hide a smile. Felix walked over to Mom. I was operating all morning. I leave for 6 hours. And somehow we've reached airport security for pastries. Mom rubbed her temples. You missed the diaper tactical unit. Felix nodded thoughtfully. I see. No. I don't see. And frankly. He looked around once more. I'm afraid to ask. Felix had barely finished speaking when I looked at him carefully. A doctor? Please let this one be normal. I've already got 6 brothers with the combined IQ of a decorative houseplant whenever Natalie starts crying. Felix walked over to my cradle and gently poked my tiny hand. Hello, little sister. His voice was surprisingly soft. I instinctively grabbed his finger. Wait. He didn't immediately declare Natalie the cutest baby in the universe? Interesting. Felix smiled. So this is the famous Nevada. I narrowed my baby eyes. He's smiling normally. No twitching. No dramatic music. No, Nat is the most innocent little angel. Did Mom finally give birth to the family's only functioning brain cell? Mom almost laughed out loud after hearing my thoughts. Felix glanced at her. Mom? Nothing. She quickly coughed into her fist. Just allergies. At that moment, Natalie suddenly rushed over. Felix. She threw herself toward him with practiced precision. I was bullied. Felix instinctively caught her before she hit the floor. She buried her face in his chest. My hand still hurts. She dramatically held up the tiny blister from yesterday. Felix examined it for 3 seconds. Then he calmly asked. Have you been applying the ointment? Natalie blinked. No. Then why are you complaining? The ballroom became so quiet that someone dropping a grape could have started a panic. Natalie's eyes widened. You don't feel sorry for me? Felix looked genuinely confused. It's a 1st-degree burn. It'll heal. You've had paper cuts worse than this. I nearly spit out my pacifier. He used medical facts. A real doctor. He exists. Dad slowly turned toward Felix with unmistakable pride. That's my son. The other brothers looked uncomfortable. Edward folded his arms. Felix, you're being cold. Felix frowned. No. I'm being accurate. He pointed at me. The patient most likely to die in this room isn't Natalie. Everyone froze. Felix continued matter-of-factly. It's the 1-month-old infant people keep trying to hit with random household objects. Silence. Then several guests quietly nodded. He has a point. Edward opened and closed his mouth. But Nat didn't mean. Felix interrupted him. I've reviewed the security footage. You sent it to the family group chat. Edward paled. I did? Felix pulled out his phone. You accidentally replied to Family Forever Red Heart instead of your fan club. Edward slowly remembered. Oh. The other brothers simultaneously reached for their phones. Their expressions changed one after another. Emerson whispered. I thought nobody had read it. Felix sighed. I watched all 12 videos. He looked at Natalie. The stroller. The hot milk. The modified rattle. He adjusted his glasses. If this keeps up, I'll have to start treating my own family as repeat emergency patients. Natalie bit her lip. Tears immediately welled up. So. You all think I'm a bad person? Felix shook his head. No. I think you need therapy. The room fell silent again. I stared at him in admiration. He just prescribed psychological counseling in the middle of a birthday banquet. This man is magnificent. Natalie burst into loud sobs. I'm just scared. I'm afraid everyone will stop loving me because Nev came home. For the first time, the guests didn't immediately comfort her. Instead, they exchanged awkward looks. Dad finally spoke. Natalie. His tone wasn't angry. It was tired. No one asked you to leave. You were welcomed as our daughter for 18 years. But every time Nev appears, you choose to attack her. You've turned your own fear into someone else's danger. Natalie's crying faltered. Dad continued. If you truly feel insecure, we can help you. But if you keep trying to hurt a baby. He glanced toward Damien. The agreement stays. Damien immediately produced yet another copy. I blinked. How many copies does he own? Does he sleep on one? Is there an agreement warehouse somewhere? Almost on cue, a young bodyguard hurried over. Captain. We're down to only 63 spare copies. Damien's expression finally cracked. Only 63? He immediately turned to another guard. Emergency printing. 500 more. Use waterproof paper this time. Yesterday Mr. Ethan cried on 3 of them. The entire ballroom exploded into uncontrollable laughter. Even Dad had to turn away to hide his grin. I happily waved my chubby little fists. Yes. This family is still insane. But at least now. They're becoming my kind of insane. Over the next 6 months, the Fairchild Mansion transformed into the strangest battlefield in the country. When I was 3 months old, Natalie accidentally dropped a flower pot from the 2nd floor while my stroller passed underneath. The flower pot never reached the ground. A bodyguard caught it. Another bodyguard caught Natalie. A third bodyguard had already highlighted Article 18. Result. Her monthly allowance was reduced by 80%. She cried. Dad increased my milk budget with the confiscated money. At 4 months. My second brother Elliot secretly bought Natalie a diamond tiara worth $2 million. Damien appeared behind him. Article 29. The value of gifts given to Miss Natalie must be matched with gifts to Miss Neve. Elliot laughed. Fine. Buy the baby a tiara too. Damien nodded. The remaining balance after purchasing Miss Neve's tiara has been donated. Your bank account is now empty. Elliot fainted on the spot. 5 months. Edward secretly reopened his live stream. My family has become completely unreasonable. The stream lasted 4 seconds. His screen went black. His account displayed. Account suspended for violating company policy. Edward screamed. Somewhere in the mansion. Dad quietly sipped tea while clicking approve. 6 months. Natalie tried poisoning my baby food. She proudly swapped my bowl with hers. Damien switched them back while she wasn't looking. 5 minutes later. Natalie took one bite. She immediately spat it out. Who put chili oil in baby porridge? The chef timidly raised his hand. Captain Lockwood instructed us to randomly season every suspicious bowl. Damien nodded. A security measure. The chef looked inspired. I call it defensive cooking. By the time I turned 1, the 8 brothers had split into 2 camps. Camp 1. Ethan. Elliot. Edward. Emerson. Still hopelessly protective of Natalie. Collectively nicknamed by the staff. The 4 brain cells. Because they appeared to share exactly 4 between them. Camp 2. Felix. Ezra. Evan. And the youngest brother, Finn, who had just returned from studying overseas. Finn walked into the mansion. Saw 91 bodyguards. Saw Damien carrying 17 copies of the agreement. Saw Natalie crying. Saw me happily chewing on Damien's tie. He quietly asked. How long was I gone? Felix answered. 3 years. Finn nodded. Feels like 30. Then he watched security footage. Every single clip. Without interruption. When it ended. He looked at Natalie. Then at me. Then at the others. Finally he sighed. Why are all of you losing arguments? To someone who still eats paper? I proudly swallowed part of the agreement. Damien calmly handed me another copy. Miss Neve likes the laminated ones. By age 2. Everyone in the city knew one rule. If you wanted to do business with the Fairchild family. Never. Ever. Mess with the youngest daughter. Because you weren't just fighting a toddler. You were fighting. One terrifying mother. One amused billionaire father. 91 absurdly competent bodyguards. One emotionally detached genius doctor. And a captain who somehow had a legally binding contract prepared for literally every situation imaginable. Even the lawyers had started calling him the walking terms and conditions. And Damien accepted the nickname with pride. By the time I was 5, the Fairchild family had become famous nationwide. Not for their wealth, but because every month, one of my brothers somehow violated the agreement. The staff even started a betting pool. Who's getting fined this month? Year 3. Ethan secretly transferred a beachfront mansion to Natalie. Damien calmly transferred 2 beachfront mansions into my name. But I only own one. You also forfeited next year's inheritance. Ethan fainted. Again. Year 4. Edward made a documentary called Growing Up with an Evil Little Sister. It was scheduled to premiere worldwide. Unfortunately, Dad bought the entire streaming platform the night before. The documentary was replaced with 3 hours of baby videos of me sleeping. It became the platform's highest rated release. Year 5. Emerson hired a child psychologist. I think Nev is manipulating everyone. The psychologist spent one afternoon with us. He watched Natalie fake faint 6 times. Watched Ethan scream at bodyguards. Watched Damien issue 4 legal notices before lunch. Then quietly diagnosed. The only normal child here is Nevada. He refused payment and retired early. Year 6. Natalie secretly leaked fake scandals about me online. Within 2 hours. Dad's legal team sued 43 accounts. Mom sued another 17. Damien somehow sued the internet. Nobody knew how. Even the judge asked, "Is that legal?" Damien replied, "It is now." Year 7. I finally started elementary school. I walked through the gate carrying my little backpack. Behind me, 91 bodyguards. 3 lawyers. 4 maids. 2 chefs. 1 pediatrician. Damien. The principal nearly had a heart attack. "Miss Fairchild. Are you expecting an invasion?" Dad smiled. "No. We're expecting Natalie." Sure enough. 10 minutes later. Natalie appeared disguised as a volunteer parent. She was 25 years old. Trying to sneak into a primary school. The security guard looked at her ID. "Ma'am. You graduated college 7 years ago." Natalie silently turned around and walked home. By the time I turned 10, even my 4 hopeless brothers had finally given up. Not because they suddenly became smart. Because they had become broke. Between fines, confiscations, lawsuits, and forfeited inheritances. The 4 of them collectively owned 1 sofa, half a coffee table, and Ethan's favorite raincoat. Everything else somehow belonged to me. I flipped through the family property ledger. I looked at Damien. "Captain. Do I own 3rd brother?" Damien adjusted his glasses. "Not legally." A pause. "Financially. Approximately 73%. Edward looked up from washing dishes. "Can I declare bankruptcy against my little sister?" By the time I turned 18, the results were in. Final score. Me. Asterisk CEO of the Fairchild Group. Asterisk owner of half the family fortune. Asterisk valedictorian. Asterisk national fencing champion. Asterisk still had 91 bodyguards. Damien. Asterisk promoted from captain of security. Asterisk to vice president of agreement enforcement. Asterisk nobody knew what that department actually did. Asterisk nobody dared ask. Dad. Retired peacefully. Every morning he watered flowers while reading newspapers about which of his sons had violated another clause. Mom. Lived happily. Her favorite hobby was adding new articles to the agreement. It had grown from 56 clauses to 2,847. It was now thicker than the national constitution. Law schools used it as optional reading. As for my brothers, Ethan finally admitted he had been an idiot. He walked into my office. "Nev. I'm sorry. I owe you an apology." I smiled. "Accepted." He almost cried. Then Damien walked in. "Miss Neve. Mr. Ethan has unpaid penalties dating back 16 years. Ethan froze. "How much?" Damien adjusted his glasses. "With compound interest. Roughly 430 million. Ethan burst into tears. Edward eventually rebuilt his entertainment career. His most successful reality show became Living Under My Little Sister's Roof. Every episode featured him violating the agreement. Every episode ended with Damien appearing. Ratings were phenomenal. Felix became the country's greatest surgeon. Whenever someone asked how he stayed calm under pressure, he answered, "I grew up watching my adopted sister try to assassinate my biological sister with household appliances. No operating room can frighten me." The other brothers gradually came to their senses. Mostly because bankruptcy is an excellent teacher. And Natalie? After 18 years. She finally snapped. She stood in the middle of the mansion screaming. "Why does everything always go her way?" I took a sip of tea. "Because unlike you, I learned after dying in 8 different worlds. You only repeated the same mistake 8,000 times." She lunged toward me one last time. Before she even took 2 steps. 91 bodyguards. 3 lawyers. Felix. Mom. Dad. 8 brothers. Even the family dog. Instinctively moved to stand in front of me. Natalie stopped. She slowly looked around. Everyone. Even the brothers who once spoiled her. Were protecting me. For the first time in 18 years. She realized she had truly lost. Not because I had taken her place. But because she had thrown away hers. She silently packed her luggage and left the Fairchild estate. As the gates closed behind her, Damien pulled out one final document. He smiled politely. Miss Neve. The agreement has officially reached 100% completion. I blinked. There's an ending? He nodded. I prepared it 16 years ago. Of course you did. He handed me a gold-plated certificate. It read. Congratulations. You have successfully survived another real heiress versus fake heiress novel. World clear. I stared at the certificate. Then sighed. Only 7 more transmigration genres to go. A familiar mechanical voice echoed in my mind. Congratulations, host. Comedy route, perfect completion. I covered my face. Please. No more fake heiresses.